Hello, and welcome to a special presentation here on LMTV. I'm Brian Hoppy, Chair of the Township's Environmental Advisory Council, or EAC. In September 2018, the EAC presented a public sustainability workshop. The discussions that evening explored various aspects of sustainability, and we hope served as a launching point for a much broader conversation about how Lower Merion can meet the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Back in April 2018, the EAC presented an environmental action plan to the Board of Commissioners. The plan is ambitious, and it contains numerous initiatives that will guide the EAC's activities for the next 5 years. One of the plan's initiatives recognizes the need to increase the township's resiliency, further improve environmental quality, and develop a more holistic approach with regards to sustainability within the township. That served as a driving force to conduct the sustainability workshop. LMTV was on hand to record the workshop, and we'd like to present the conclusion of the evening's second segment now, Energy Conservation Actions in Lower Merion. Enjoy.
Lower Merion Township, what are we doing? As you have seen earlier outside, yes, we did put, as part of the Ludington Library does have a green roof. That was one of the first steps that we took as the board took as a township. Also, as mentioned earlier, the geothermal heat source at Bell Library. Consideration was given to the Belmont Hills Library, our latest renovation on the geothermal heat source. Cost prohibitive due to the substructure. Sorry, I always get told I'm too quiet. Because of the substructure, the library is built on top of a quarry. So to drill and put in the wells was very cost prohibitive when initial analysis was done, so that was foregone. What occurs is the board and the township gives directives to us as staff. We are the mechanical end. We have to make it work within the budgets and the parameters that we are given. With that, though, we do provide research to the board on different initiatives. Some of the things that we are currently working on. Earlier was mentioned the police cars. Simple solution, but we also have to be conscious while we examine the police cars that we have officers that are in those cars for 12 hours straight that have to live and function within those vehicles and have to be comfortable, but also have to be able to exit those vehicles and be able to move. Sit in your car for a couple hours and get out, how do you feel? So currently we have our first hybrid police vehicle coming. We will be testing it shortly. We are to take delivery soon. We will be outfitting it, and we will be testing it amongst the entire department to get their feedback. Because as part of my job is we look at all the vehicles within the township, all the equipment within the township, whether it be from the chainsaws and the lawnmowers to the police vehicles to every vehicle that's driven. So we are looking at them. We have looked at hybrids for the general fleet. Issue is the cost associated with the hybrids versus return on investment are not financially feasible at this time. So that would pose a question to the Board of Commissioners as to spending more money for less footprint versus more money or less money and less tax burden on those residents. And they're the decisions that the board is tasked with, having to find that balance and what the constituents see as needed and wanted. So we continually look at the feasibility of all the hybrids, all the electric vehicles, and constantly look for grants and other items that will offset those costs. We've just reviewed two. The amount of the grant was very insignificant for our needs at this time. As to what are we doing, many of you may or may not know the board has just completed their comprehensive plan. Within that plan, there are many things that address walkability, being able to bicycle and commute that way. Myself, in conjunction with the building department, the Public Works Department, the building department, are now making an active, one of our active roles or task is to really work with the Bicycle Coalition and try to institute many of the bike lanes and that study that was brought forward to the board many years ago. So we're working in conjunction to make that happen. It's an initiative that the head of building and planning has asked me to take on in my new role, and we are working actively to do that. What else has the board done? Of late, you probably, if you watched several weeks ago, the board last year, or the beginning of this year, put out an RFP, or an RFQ, excuse me, first, for an energy conservation consultant. And I'm happy to say that the board picked Provident Energy Group, and we started working diligently with them to look at the township's energy consumption, the township's energy footprint. In doing so, staff came back to the board with the recommendation to go out for an RFP to look at energy conservation measures within the township. We have done a preliminary study of all the township facilities, township utility bills, all the street lighting and so forth, so that we've gathered a good idea of what we want to address. The board has put out that we will be moving forward with an RFP through the consultant so that we can try to identify how we want to move forward. Myself, my staff, we are going to be actively working with the consultant to identify the energy conservation measures that make most sense for the township, but also work for us to be able to function and to be financially responsible to the citizens. So we are standardizing things, and so that way, if we have an issue in one building, we have products and so forth to replace them in the other buildings to be cost effective and to save time and to better provide for the residents and our employees within the buildings. Along with that, we are at the tail end of our secured energy pricing, so we will be going out to bid to look at our energy, the township's energy use, and our pricing. With that, the board will be faced or asked to consider renewable energy and how much renewable energy they wish to purchase as part of that contract. And the consultant will be providing them with that information as to what the quotes are and where we stand. So the township's done many of that. What many people don't realize is, mentioned earlier, was the trees and so forth and recycling. We do have within the township a composting facility. When we have storm damage and when we do our shade trees, we take those trees, we take that debris, and we turn it into mulch down at our facility down on Waverly Road. We do that. We are we also compost the leaves. One issue that we do have is we don't have enough takers for the product that we make. We are going to be moving forward in the next year. We will be looking at how we can make the composting facility more beneficial to the residents and also to the surrounding communities or businesses with a more viable product.
Can you bring branches and shrubbery to you?
The question, since our resident wasn't up at the microphone, can you bring branches and shrubbery to the township facility? As a resident, you can do so. It's at no cost to the resident. Contractors, there is a cost, but to the residents, it's free. You need proof of ID. It can be brought to the Kegel facility at 1300 North Woodbine Avenue in Penn Valley. We're open Monday through Saturday. For your convenience, you have to present ID, stop at the dump facility. It's our public works facility, and they'll direct you to where to dispose of that product. But yes, we are open to doing so. You can also bring in your leaf bags and so forth. That said, so we will be, our composting facility, we've had a change in, we had a retirement of one of our individuals. We have a new young man down there who's energetic, is embracing it. So we're trying to propose, he will be taking coursework in how to better compost, how to produce a better product, a more consistent product, so that when you do come to the Kegel complex and you take that product, you'll know you have the finest quality that we can produce. So that's one of the initiatives we're making this year. As I mentioned before, we do our mulch, and we are 100% compliant with our recycling program as mandated by the state. The other night, last week, if you were watching, the ratings are way up because we were talking about our trash and our recycling and the cost associated with it. And it is a quandary for the board that they're facing right now because we're having increased cost because the recycling market worldwide has stopped. The commodities market on recycling has gotten cost prohibitive. China is no longer accepting it. So we as the township are faced with higher costs. How do we deal with those higher costs and what do we do with them? So we're, as part of our due diligence within staff, is we are looking at how to better dispose of the product more responsibly. What can we do to help with the cost, to help with the commissioners? There was discussion about the recycling, about single stream versus dual stream. In the township, we do dual stream, and what that is your paper products are separated from your plastic products. As the township, we get paid for that paper. That paper product is a commodity. We've seen it decrease in the last several years from well over $100 a ton to about $23 a ton. So our profit on that has gone down greatly. I shouldn't say profit. What that is it's cost offset to the residents on the cost of their trash pickup. So question was asked of me as to should we just go to single stream commingled waste. Quick analysis of it, because we are still getting paid for the paper, would it be a $302,000 cost increase to the township residents to go to single stream. So we are very active because we are doing dual stream. So the township does encourage that, and I would hope that we would continue to do that. So there's numerous things that we are doing as a township. If you go through our facilities, as staff changes out lighting, we are changing to LEDs. We went from T12s to T8s to T5s. Various buildings are in different stages. Some of what we're looking at with the energy conservation program that's coming forward is converting most, if not all, to LEDs. We're also talking to other suppliers about LEDs within the buildings. When we look at other buildings, we did Ardmore Library. The air conditioning system that was put in there is one of the most efficient available. It has what they call an unloader system, which balances out the compressors to help save energy. So when everything is being designed and spec'd, staff, along with the township engineer, are constantly looking at what we can do to be more green and more environmentally friendly, but we also have to be financially responsible to the board and to the residents. So that's the balancing act that they have and the parameters that we work within. So we are trying.
In addition to being proud of its students, the Lower Merion School District is also very proud of its operations department, and I'm happy to introduce Jim Lill, who is the new Director of Operations for the Lower Merion School District.
I want to discuss what we do at the school district and some of the things that you see and some things that you may not be aware of that we do in terms of energy conservation and sustainability. So I have the pictures here of the LEED Gold plaques from those two brand new shiny high schools, by the way. Harriton High School opened in 2009. That guy's 9 years old. Lower Merion opened in 2010. That's 8 years old. But we did achieve LEED Gold for both schools. Left-hand side is the Harriton picture next to the Harriton monument. And at Lower Merion, I happened to see, and no one can read it, but I wanted to point it out, in that little 8.5 by 11 frame is an award. It's a green cleaning award. It's because the custodial staff at Lower Merion uses environmentally friendly chemicals, environmentally friendly cleaning products to help the environment. It's better for the environment. It's better for the occupants. It's better for the custodians. So there's some of those smaller things that while everyone sees the big circle with the LEED lettering, there are other smaller parts that our custodial staff and our operations department tries to take the lead on. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is many of you remember this phenomenon in the universe. There used to be this large object in the solar system that used to show itself and provide sunshine. We haven't seen that object called the sun in about 2 weeks. However, as we sit here and we're doing this presentation, we're sitting in a room that has light. In this situation, it's artificial light. We at the school district have classrooms that allow natural light in. It helps the learning environment. It helps the students. It's also a free source of light. However, you may notice, and the Lower Merion picture does not show it as well, but Harriton, you can start to see what they did. Architecturally, you notice that library at Harriton has that large ski slope going up on that roof line. That's basically a canopy. If you look close enough in that picture, you can see that the canopy is throwing shade onto those windows facing south. So we're getting the benefit of the free natural light. What we're reducing is the amount of heat gain that we would then have to air condition if the sun was directly beating upon it. So it was a shading exercise. Very disappointed. I had this picture, and for some reason it got distorted, shifting between computers. But the idea of a sunshade and awnings dates back to Welsh Valley Middle School, to the 50s, when they built that school. The old Harriton had sunshades as well. The architect at the time, a gentleman by the name of Vincent Kling, knew how to do this. The industry wasn't ready for him yet. They were stick building these sunshades, the horizontal projections that you see coming out. They did not hold up well at Harriton. Not much did hold up well at the old Harriton. But at Welsh Valley, we've had to go back and repair these because they are a function and part of how that building operates. So there's a pretty simple theory behind it. You want that natural light, you want that sunlight, but depending on the angle of the sun, what time of year it is, whether it's the summer solstice of June 21st or the winter in December 21st, you work with the angle of the sun so that you get natural light, but you keep yourself in the shade in the summertime. And if you can pull it off, get that heat gain in the wintertime to maybe get some free heat. So concept was applied at both Lower Merion and Harriton. So when you go by there, it's not just an architectural enhancement. On this particular face of Lower Merion High School, that's western-facing glass. So what they did there, in order to work with that angle of the sun and the projections, you have your horizontal awning or horizontal shade, and then they also have the verticals. And again, that's based on the fact that that sunlight's hitting it from the west as opposed to some of the earlier pictures that we showed from the south. Another piece of trivia, something you can say that you know that I gave you top secret information. Those are the sunshades over top of Lower Merion High School's library, the large windows facing towards Montgomery Avenue. You may notice, and it's probably tough in that picture, but you look closely enough, there's a couple of rows of, I call them like louvers or fins, horizontal bars that go across. As you start to go higher and higher up, you start to notice it starts to get less dense in terms of how much of those bars that we had coming across. That was part of what we were doing for the sun shading. What we did not realize, the first winter that Lower Merion High School was open, we had no idea that snow would accumulate onto those horizontal projections, which structurally caused us some concern. It caused additional concern when these snows started to fall on 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders coming in and out of the main entrance. The school administration asked us if we could place a few 10th graders underneath the falling snow. We denied that request. We've actually had to go and remove some of those horizontal bars because with leaving them in place, we would have had minor avalanches coming down on the student body. We actually do keep one of our lifts close by because one of the things we'll do for snow removal is we'll get the snow off of that because it will eventually cause a problem as it begins to thaw and melt. So next part of the presentation here, I actually have you in the boiler room of Harriton High School, and I'm going to ask at this point we do a little audience participation. Now, in order for me to do this, I have to give you a little backstory, so bear with me for a few moments. Many years ago, my college roommate and I went to a Penn State football game. We did not attend the Pennsylvania State University, but we went there for a game and weekend festivities. So we're in the stadium watching the game, and similar sports venues, people come around and sell food and beverage. So I'm sitting there, and I decided to say, "Yo, water." 4 rows of Penn State fans start laughing at me. Okay, what's so funny? First of all, the yo is right out of a Rocky movie, so we know that you're from Philadelphia. And no one in this stadium sells water. W-U-D-D-E-R. So I'm going to try to pronounce water correctly as I present this topic. If at any point I do it incorrectly, you have my permission to raise your hand, or you can yell, "Yo!" Not going to be offended. We're trying to work on this. So in terms of water conservation, we have a very large roof at Harriton High School. Most times, the roof drains tie into a system that goes into your stormwater system, whatever that may be. Harriton is different. 1/3 of that roof area actually ties into a storage tank right outside of our loading dock, which then has another storage tank that holds the water in a tank down in our boiler room. Now, I could show you pictures of a waterless urinal or a toilet, which is not the greatest of optics, but I decided instead to show you this tank and these pumps, because we're not using potable aqua domestic water to flush our toilets. It's coming from these tanks. Oh, wait, hold your applause. Hold on. In order to get this to work, we need to circulate that water through the various pipes to get out to the various plumbing fixtures, specifically the toilets. So we installed this system, opened up in 2009. We're proud of ourselves. In October, November, there's the first power outage at Harriton. It happens. PECO has power outages. About an hour later, we get a phone call from Harriton. None of the toilets will flush. We neglected to place those pumps onto the backup generator, in which case, in a power outage, you can't flush a toilet. We have since corrected that. However, it was a great idea. It is very environmentally friendly and sustainable. If you do it, put the pumps on backup power. Trust me. Since we're down in boiler rooms and other areas of our schools that probably no one has seen, this is your conventional packaged boiler. You get about 82% efficiency. So for every gallon of oil or CCF of natural gas that you put into that boiler, 80% of it actually goes into something that can heat the building. You lose about 20% due to thermal inefficiency in that design. So what you'll see, well, you won't because most people don't go in their boiler rooms. As we've been renovating buildings and as we've been building new buildings, we're going to newer boiler technology. What does this boiler do? Well, it's a condensing boiler. Based on what it does with the flue gases, we get 96% efficiency out of this. We're getting more heat for the money, and we're getting lower energy consumption to get the same amount of output. The other thing that it does, it reduces nitrogen oxide. Okay, Tamar, still here? Help me out on the chemistry. That's a good thing. It's going to reduce greenhouse gases and reduces the emissions that are coming from our buildings. So a couple of examples, and as much as I picked on Welsh Valley and also had the defective photo of Welsh Valley, those are the boilers in Welsh Valley Middle School on the right-hand side, which is one of our oldest buildings. Back in the old days, you'd be looking at one of these monstrosities. However, that building's 50, 55 years old. Well, that boiler, that original boilers, died. The solution was not to replace it with the old technology, move forward with the higher efficiency, lower emission equipment. So what has this done for the district? Well, let me back up for a second. Why are we greening America's schools? What's the impetus for doing green schools? Well, there's the energy cost savings, which I'll show in a moment. You have the emissions reduction, which I touched on with the NOx. You have water and wastewater reduction. And there's also health and learning benefits. The students perform better in a healthy environment. We get to bring fresh air into that building in order to ventilate it, in order to keep down the CO2 levels. But that comes at a cost because when you're bringing fresh air into a building, you have to cool it and dehumidify it in the summertime. You have to heat it in the winter. We have heat recovery units. We have very robust systems that certainly in the high schools are maintaining and providing the appropriate amount of temperature, humidity, fresh air. All of it is, we have those capabilities. Trick is making sure it works. So in terms of what we do on our utility costs, this is a graph that was in last year's budget presentation. You can see that our usage is down and our costs are down, but the costs could be a little, again, costs are based on some of the procurement pricing that you're paying. But the key thing is to keep those lines going down in terms of how much electric we're using year after year, how much natural gas. So for the taxpayers' benefit, the median cost per square foot for school districts in southeastern Pennsylvania, $1.24 per square foot. In 13-14, Lower Merion School District was paying about a little over $1.19, down to $1.13, $1.11. We're now at $1.09, 16-17. I do not have the 17-18 numbers. Again, 2 months, 3 weeks, 2 days. Really, a lot of this is a credit to my predecessor, a gentleman by the name of Pat Gannan, who really got a lot of this started, certainly with the sustainability, not just with the high schools, but with all of our schools, the green cleaning, all of those things. Those were things that really he implemented and deserves a lot of the credit for. What I wanted to finish with, and again, in terms of the picture of the operations department, the people who actually maintain these buildings, keep them clean, and try to mow the lawn when we're not in swamp-like conditions. There is an energy efficiency guide that says a building with good operations and maintenance practices that is poorly designed often outperformed a well-designed building that poorly operates and isn't maintained properly. The fact that you see, and that we have proven trends that our utility consumption is going down, that's a credit to the building maintenance staff, the guys that are out there who are fixing these things that break. These systems are more complicated. There are more parts that break. We put a lot of this new technology into place, didn't think through all of the consequences necessarily. Building mechanics have come to me and said, what were you guys thinking when you did such and such? Well, Dan, it looked good on paper. That might be true. It doesn't work. This is what we need to do to get it to work, because even the best designed system isn't going to give you the energy efficiency and sustainability unless you maintain it properly. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me as we present the Environmental Advisory Council's Sustainability Workshop. We'll be back next time with more from the evening's presentations. In the meantime, you can view the workshop in its entirety online. I'd like to thank EAC member David Richmond and one of the township's senior planners, Andrea Campisi, for all their work in organizing the event. I'm Brian Hoppy, chair of the EAC. We'll see you next time.